3 weeks ago, my family tried to corner me like I was some kind of ATM with legs. And now my phone has 300 plus missed calls. My dad has left 47 voicemails where he's actually crying. And my sister Autumn's wedding venue just got canceled. They found out what I actually did. And honestly, I've been waiting years for this moment. Let me back up, because you need to understand this family to understand why I'm not even a little bit sorry. I'm 31. Autumn is 28. Our whole lives, the family math has been simple. Autumn is the princess, and I exist to make her life easier. When we were kids, my parents, Clark and Pauline, told me constantly that boys need to work hard, while girls need to be protected. Autumn got dance lessons, private tutoring, a car at 16. I got a job at 14 and was told my college fund went toward her brasses and summer camps. Every single family gathering for 2 decades has included some version of my mom asking when I'm going to step up and be a real brother. Oh, okay. So, we're dealing with that family. The kind where one kid gets the Disney Channel life and the other kid gets character building. And I love how they dressed up, blatant favoritism in this fake progressive language. Girls need to be protected. No. You just picked a favorite and found an excuse. Also, his college fund paid for her brasses. Sir, ma'am, those are not the same category of expense. That's like saying, sorry, we can't fund your future. Your sister needed straighter teeth for Instagram. Here's the thing though. 5 years ago, I stopped being the pushover they raised. I moved 3 states away, built a decent career, and saved aggressively because I knew this moment was coming. I knew they'd eventually need something big enough that I could finally show them exactly who they created. See, this is what people don't understand about the quiet ones who leave. They're not running away. They're going to the gym. They're training. This man has been doing financial meal prep for years, waiting for these people to fumble. He moved 3 states away, which in family drama terms is basically witness protection. Thanksgiving at my parents' house. 40 relatives packed into their place. I drove 8 hours because my mom guilt-tripped me for months about how grandma might not have many holidays left. I should have known something was off when Autumn showed up, wearing an actual tiara, and everyone kept giving me weird looks during appetizers. An actual tiara at Thanksgiving at a family dinner where you eat turkey and fight about politics. She showed up dressed like she was accepting a crown at a pageant for main characters and 40 relatives, giving him weird looks. That's not a family dinner. That's an ambush with stuffing. My guy walked into a trap, and the only warning sign was his adult sister wearing princess accessories. Halfway through dinner, my mom Pauline stood up and clinked her glass. She gave this speech about family obligations and how blessed we are to have each other. Then she pulled out a document and slid it across the table to me. A contract actually notarized, stating I would pay $85,000 for Autumn's wedding to her fiancé over the next 18 months. I looked around the table, 40 people staring at me. My dad, Clark, stood up and announced that every person there agreed I owed Autumn this because of everything they sacrificed raising me. My uncle Isaiah positioned himself near the front door like some kind of bouncer. I need everyone to understand the audacity of this production. They notarized a document. They got it legally witnessed. They held a whole family meeting beforehand, where 40 grown adults apparently agreed, yeah, let's shake down your son at Thanksgiving. That's normal. And Uncle Isaiah stationed himself at the door like this was a heist movie, and our guy was the mark. They said, you're not leaving until you sign over $85,000. This isn't a family. This is organized crime with a casserole. Then Autumn smiled at me and said she'd already booked the venue under my credit card because Mom gave her my information months ago. She committed credit card fraud on camera at Thanksgiving in front of 40 witnesses, and she smiled about it like she just told him she saved him a seat. The smugness, the absolute confidence that this would work, because it's always worked, she really said. I already stole from you, so you might as well just accept it. Like, that's a negotiation tactic and not a felony. I need to stop here, because what happened next requires its own post. But I'll tell you this much. I said one sentence, just one, and my mother's face went completely white. The room went from smug to panicked in about 3 seconds. That was 3 weeks ago. What I did after I left that house has now officially destroyed my sister's wedding plans and put my parents in a situation they absolutely did not see coming. Update 1. Alright, the comments on my last post were wild. And a lot of you guessed close to what happened. Let me tell you about that sentence and what went down after. So, there I am, 40 relatives staring at me. My uncle blocking the door like I'm going to make a run for it. And Autumn sitting there in her tiara telling me she already booked a $40,000 venue deposit on my card. My mom, Pauline, is smiling like she just won the lottery. The sentence I said was this: I told them I froze that credit card 2 years ago after Mom tried to add herself as an authorized user without asking me. Yo, 2 years. This man has been playing chess while they were playing Candyland. His mom tried to commit fraud 2 years ago, and instead of confronting her, he just took notes, set up alerts, and waited. That's not a grudge. That's an investment. He let them marinate in their own confidence for 24 months, knowing they'd eventually overplay their hand. This is the financial equivalent of I'm not locked in here with you. You're locked in here with me. See, what my lovely family didn't know is that I've been waiting for them to pull something exactly like this. 2 years back, I got an alert that someone was trying to modify my account. I called the bank, found out my mom had somehow gotten enough of my info to attempt adding herself. I shut that down immediately, got new card numbers, and set up fraud alerts on everything. I never confronted her about it because I wanted to see what they'd try next. So, when Autumn announced she booked this venue under my card, that booking never went through. The venue had been calling her for weeks about the failed payment, and she'd been ignoring them, assuming I'd just pay at Thanksgiving. Oh, this is beautiful. Autumn has been dodging calls from the venue like it was an ex-boyfriend. She saw Rosewood Manor flash on her phone 12 times and said, "He'll handle it at dinner." The entitlement required to book a $40,000 deposit on someone else's card and then just not check if it worked? She was so confident in her own prince's status that she didn't even verify the crime was successful. That's not just delusional. That's genuinely impressive levels of main character syndrome. The silence at that table. Then my dad Clark started yelling that I was sabotaging my sister's happiness, that I'd always been jealous of her. Autumn started crying and screaming that I ruined everything, that her fiancé Clyde's family already sent out, save the dates. My mom kept repeating that family helps family, and I was spitting on everything they'd done for me. I asked them what exactly they'd done for me. Name one thing. My dad said they kept a roof over my head for 18 years, like that was some kind of favor. I reminded him about my college fund that mysteriously disappeared. He said Autumn needed it more because girls have harder lives. We kept a roof over your head as the minimum legal requirement for having a child. That's not a favor. That's not. Going to prison? You don't get credit for meeting the baseline of didn't abandon your kid in the woods. And Dad Clark, my guy really said Autumn needed your college fund because girls have harder lives. While his daughter is sitting there in a tiara, demanding $85,000 for a party. What exactly is hard about her life? The weight of the crown? My uncle Isaiah told me I should be ashamed. I told him to move away from the door or I'd call the police for unlawful detainment. He moved. I left. 8-hour drive home with my phone blowing up the entire time. But here's where it gets worse, and why I'm posting this update. Uncle Isaiah really thought he was security at the family crime operation, and folded the second someone mentioned police. That's the thing about enablers. They're brave when they think they're on the winning team. One mention of actual consequences and suddenly he's very interested in stepping aside. 2 days after Thanksgiving, Autumn's fiancé, Clyde, showed up at my apartment. He'd driven 6 hours. He wanted to talk man-to-man about how I could still fix this and save his relationship with Autumn because she was threatening to call off the engagement if the wedding wasn't perfect. What Clyde told me during that conversation changed everything. I thought I knew about this situation, and it's the reason my parents are now in serious trouble. Update 2. Okay, so Clyde showing up at my apartment was not something I expected. But what came out of that conversation? That's the part that made me realize my parents are way worse than I thought. Clyde sat in my living room for 2 hours. He started off trying to guilt me, talking about how Autumn cries every night now and how this was supposed to be the happiest time of their lives. I let him talk. Then I asked him one simple question. What exactly did my parents tell his family about the wedding finance? Clyde said my parents sat down with his parents back in September. They told them I had a trust fund for my grandparents, that I'd inherited at 25, and that I'd already committed to covering Autumn's entire wedding as my gift to her. His parents adjusted their own contributions based on this. They were only covering the rehearsal dinner and honeymoon because they believed I was handling the 85K. There is no trust fund. My grandparents left everything to my parents directly. I got nothing. They invented a trust fund. They sat down with another family, looked them in the eyes, and fabricated an entire inheritance that doesn't exist. This isn't even about the wedding anymore. This is fraud. Fraud. They created a fictional version of their son who had money and wanted to spend it on his sister, and then sold that character to Clyde's family like he was a real person. They're literally identity thieves, but the identity they stole was generous brother with money. The creativity required to be this terrible is almost impressive. So, my parents straight up lied to another family to lock them into this wedding plan, knowing they'd use that Thanksgiving ambush to force me into paying. They manufactured a situation where Clyde's family would look bad if they backed out, and where I'd look like the villain if I didn't comply. I showed Clyde the notarized contract my mom had prepared. I explained the credit card situation. I told him about my college fund that disappeared. His face changed completely as I talked. He'd had no idea about any of this. Autumn had always told him I was the difficult one, the one who abandoned the family, the one who refused to help with anything. You can always tell when someone's entire worldview is collapsing in real time. Clyde walked in ready to defend his fiancée and walked out realizing he'd been dating a lie with a tiara. The difficult one who abandoned the family. Yeah, he abandoned them the way an escape pod abandons a sinking ship. And now Clyde is sitting there doing the math on every story Autumn ever told him. Every "my brother is so selfish" suddenly has a question mark next to it. After Clyde left, I made a decision. I wasn't going to sit back and let my parents control this narrative anymore. I got my cousin Jose's number from my phone. She'd been at that Thanksgiving dinner sitting in the corner looking uncomfortable the whole time. I asked her if she could get me contact information for Clyde's mother. Josie asked why. I told her I wanted to have an honest conversation about what my parents had promised them. Josie sent me the information that same night. What happened when I reached out to Clyde's mother put my parents in a position they never expected. And that's when Clark and Pauline finally realized they couldn't spin their way out of this one. Final update. This is the last one. And yeah, it's as satisfying as you're hoping. I messaged Clyde's mother through Facebook, introduced myself, explained I was Autumn's brother, and asked if we could have a phone conversation about the wedding finances. She agreed immediately because she was already confused why the venue was suddenly demanding a new deposit. That call lasted an hour and 40 minutes. I told her everything: the fake trust fund story, the Thanksgiving ambush, the notarized contract, the fact that my parents had been planning this for months while lying to both families. I sent her photos of the contract. I told her about my college fund that went to Autumn. I explained that I had never agreed to pay for anything. An hour and 40 minutes? That's not a phone call. That's a documentary. That's enough time for Clyde's mom to go through every stage of grief twice. And she agreed to the call immediately because she was already suspicious. She'd been getting venue calls and none of the math was mathing. This man didn't have to convince her something was wrong. He just had to explain what it was. The truth was basically sitting there waiting for someone to pick it up. She was quiet for a long time. Then she told me something that made this whole thing worth every second of planning. She said her family had already given my parents $15,000. Directly because Clark claimed he needed help with upfront costs that I would reimburse later. My parents took money from Clyde's family based on promises I never made. $15,000? They took money. Actual cash money from Clyde's family, using their son as collateral for a loan he never agreed to. This stopped being family drama about 6 revelations ago. This is wire fraud with a wedding theme. Clark and Pauline really built an entire scam where they get paid. Autumn gets a wedding, and their son gets a lifetime of debt. And they thought everyone would just be okay with it. They fumbled $15,000 of someone else's money on a scheme held together by audacity and a frozen credit card. Clyde's mother confronted my parents that same night. She brought her husband. They demanded answers about the trust fund, about the $15,000, about why they had been lied to for months. My parents tried to spin it, tried to say I was the one who backed out of promises. But Clyde's mother had the screenshots of our conversation. She had the photos of the contract that proved this was a planned ambush. Clyde called off the engagement 3 days later, not because I asked him to, but because he finally saw what kind of family he was marrying into. Autumn blamed everyone but herself. My parents blamed me for destroying their daughter's happiness. Clyde saw the light and chose himself. That's not the brother destroying the wedding. That's the brother giving Clyde the information he needed to make his own decision. And Clyde decided he didn't want to marry into a family that treats one kid like a bank and commits fraud as a bonding activity. Autumn's going to tell this story for the rest of her life, like she's the victim. But Clyde has the screenshots. Clyde has the receipts, literally. He has the $15,000 receipt where her parents stole money using her brother's name. The 47 voicemails from my dad, half of them are him sobbing about how I humiliated them in front of everyone they know. The other half are threats about what they'll do if I don't fix this. My mom's messages are all about how I owe them for raising me and how ungrateful I am. I haven't responded to a single one. Crying and threatening in the same voicemail collection is crazy behavior. Pick a lane, clock. Either you're the devastated father or you're the intimidating patriarch. You can't alternate between both, like a deranged playlist. And Pauline Stallone, you owe us for raising you. Like they didn't steal his college fund, attempt credit card fraud, and use his name to take $15,000 from strangers. The audacity to still claim victimhood while standing in the wreckage of their own scam. These people couldn't accept accountability if it came with a gift receipt. Uncle Isaiah actually apologized over text last week. Said he had no idea about the trust fund lie or the credit card site too. I told him I appreciated it. But I wasn't interested in rebuilding anything with that side of the family. Clyde's parents are considering asking for their $15,000 back. My parents don't have it. They spend it on deposits for a wedding that's never happening now. They spent it on deposits for a wedding that required the scam to work. They literally invested stolen money into the infrastructure of stealing more money. And now the whole Ponzi scheme collapsed, and they're just standing there with nothing. They have no wedding, no engagement, no $15,000. And their son finally has the life he was always supposed to have. 3 states away from their nonsense. For 20 years, they treated me like I existed to serve Autumn. They took my college fund. They tried to steal my credit. They lied to another family and used my name to do it. And when I finally refused to play along, they acted like I was the monster. They wanted me to be their ATM. Instead, I became the person who showed everyone exactly who they really are. No regrets. This is what happens when you underestimate the quiet kid who left. 20 years of treating someone like a side character in his sister's movie, and they really thought he'd just comply at Thanksgiving in front of 40 people with a notarized document. The thing about families like this is they genuinely cannot imagine their scapegoat having a spine because they've spent decades training them not to. They saw the 8-tower drive as, look how much control we still have, when it was actually, look how much evidence I'm about to collect. And here's what gets me. This wasn't revenge. This was just truthling. He didn't do anything to them. He told the truth to the family. They were scamming. That's it. The entire house of cards collapsed because someone finally said out loud what was actually happening. The parents destroyed themselves the second they built their wedding plans on fraud, on lies, and on the assumption that the son they spent decades mistreating would just fund it. Vertiso obviously. NTA. This man is a legend. He froze his credit card 2 years before the ambush because he knew his own mother would try to rob him. He spent 5 years building a life far away, while they spent 5 years building a scam. And when the moment came, he didn't yell, didn't fight, didn't cause a scene. He said one sentence and let the dominoes fall. The wedding isn't canceled because of him. It's canceled because you can't build a marriage on fraud. And eventually someone was going to notice. Autumn's going to need a new venue, a new fiancé, and about 15 years of therapy to understand why she's not the victim here. And Clark and Pauline, they're about to learn that when you spend 20 years treating your son like an ATM, eventually, he changes the pin. No notes. Absolute cinema. And to everyone out there who's the family scapegoat, saving money, quietly waiting, your moment is coming, too. Keep those fraud alerts on.